Hello and welcome, creative freelancers and solopreneurs, to this week's episode of Coaching for Creatives. I'm McKay and I am your host. We're going to talk about value. What is value? What does it even mean? Often, as creative freelancers and solopreneurs, we are told to price based on value, to position based on value, to market based on value. What I see over and over again is creatives who are really confused and stuck when it comes to understanding what is value, and more specifically, what is the value that you bring to your clients. Welcome. If you're joining me live, jump in on the comments and let me know, what is your struggle when it comes to understanding value and your value. If you're watching this on the replay, let me know that you hit it on the replay. Just at least let me know you listened to it. Every time you interact and engage, you give me value. You provide value. That's part of today's conversation, is that you are likely providing value for your clients and your colleagues in ways that you don't even recognize or know. In fact, that's one of the things that's really hard about value, is that we don't determine the value that we deliver to others. It's other people who determine the value that they receive. If we're trying to sit all alone and isolated in our little studios or working behind our desks at home, we're trying to figure out, what is the value that I bring? What is my value? That's going to be almost impossible to figure out without checking in with your audience, without checking in with your ideal client, without doing the work of saying, hey, client, prospect, what value do you receive from my services? And getting to know in their own words and from their perspective the value that you bring. Let's bring this home a little bit, because we still want to understand, what does value mean to us? When you think about when you buy something or when you spend your money on something that's really valuable to you, usually the value comes from the meaning or the significance that you place on it. This is value because it means something, or it's significant, has an impact in some way. Often that impact is saving us either time or money, or giving us some kind of a reputation. Those are the top three things that we often provide people as creative service providers. Is we save them time, we save them money or help them make more money, or we give them a sense of significance or prestige. Those are the core ones. But that aspect of, when you've paid for something, part of what makes it worth it to you is what you decide it means to you. Both of us can go out and we can meet for a coffee in a local coffee shop, probably a Starbucks. We can spend our $5 on our coffees there. And I might think, $5 for a coffee, is it really worth it? I'm not so sure. And my partner might think, oh, hey, this is awesome. I get to have a coffee with a prospect or someone I'm networking with. I get to be inside this great place. They provide an environment. We get to sit in this location rent free. The coffee creates a sense of prestige, and I get to hang out in a branded place that I align with. Starbucks isn't selling coffee. They are genuinely selling an experience. You can tell this because when they tried to do Starbucks at home, they really focused their marketing message on creating an experience. It didn't really work very well, but they really focused on having the Starbucks experience at home. And they couldn't quite do it because part of the Starbucks experience, part of the value in that, is being seen in that location. It's being seen aligned with that brand messaging. Is there some prestige to it? When we look at value and what is value, it's really about the perception of meaning that is applied to the person receiving the thing. In your case, it's going to be your clients. And how do you know that? You can figure out what your clients really value by asking great follow-up questions, by reaching out to them for getting testimonials, and by how you ask for those testimonials. I really believe that talking to your clients, especially your past clients, and finding out what was valuable about working with you. What did they notice the most? Maybe it was something inherent to your skill or your talent. Often the value for us comes from who we are, what it's like to work with us, what our energy is like when we connect or communicate or deliver our products or do the actual service. Sometimes it is the communication skills. Sometimes it's our process or initiative or perspective. Sometimes it is our style. But often it's not. Most people who are buying from creative freelancers or creative solopreneurs, they're not necessarily educated buyers. They're not as likely to see the value in your unique style. Sometimes they do, sometimes it's totally worth it. But consider if you were an introvert and you were concerned about being in front of the camera and you're always awkward and you just, it's just so frustrating and you just don't want to do it, but you're also an entrepreneur. You need portraits or business portraits in order to go out in the world and to market yourself. There would be a lot of value in connecting with a photographer who specializes in working with introverts or people who are camera shy and awkward. There would be value in that particular area of expertise, that style of working together, the process of working together, not necessarily what that image actually looks like. Consider that your value may be coming from places that you don't even recognize, that it might be your inherent way of being that brings more peace and ease and certainty to your clients. They don't have to stress out about it. It might be that you have systems and processes in place that make it super easy and they just love the organization and the structure and the format of it. You won't know what value you bring to your clients until you ask them. And likely there's going to be the external or the obvious value that you bring where you've solved their problem, that they need photos for their website, or they need a new brand, or they need an illustration. You solve that external obvious problem. The money for you and the value conversation happens when you look at what is the internal challenge or the philosophical challenge that your clients are facing. What are those deep-seated ones of being stressed out, of being wanting to perform for their boss, of having to reach these impossible goals, or whatever is internally going on with them, and then philosophically. There are levels of value that you can explore. And most of them live beyond the external tangible stuff that we usually point to, like number of images delivered or number of revisions. Really give yourself permission to imagine what could my clients be responding to in terms of value. Before we go any further, I want to just be really clear that when we talk about value, we're not talking about your value as a human being. We're not talking about that inherent element of self-worth and value that each of us has as an individual. We're not talking about your value as a human being. We're talking about the impact of your services. We're talking about what does your services make possible for other people? What is the meaning and significance that other people place on receiving your services or deliverables? It's not inherently about your self-worth, even though a lot of times the value perception is based on who you just show up and be. That a lot of people appreciate who you just show up and be. That can be valuable to others, but it's not a determination of your value as a human being. I hope this is making sense. If anyone is confused, as always, pop a note in the comments. I'm happy to explain it further. The key takeaways are that your self-worth is not the same as your net worth or your value. The second takeaway is that no wonder it's hard for you to figure out what your value is. You can't do it. You must check in with your clients. You must ask them. For those of you that have been in business a little while, there's a fabulous book that talks exactly about how you can leverage your past clients to help you design your services or your offers, and also how to price your services and offers based on your feedback from your past clients. The book is called The Pumpkin Plan. It's by Mike Michalowicz. The Pumpkin Plan is a great tool for how do you actually go back and check in with your past clients and leverage them to understand the value that you can bring with your services today. Gang, that's all I have for you today on the conversation of what is value and how can we separate our self-worth from our net worth. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you again here next week on Coaching for Creatives. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm Ora McKay.